I can't wait to talk college football with all of you on a Friday night, Saturday morning here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, as the clock strikes midnight Eastern time. For those of you on the West Coast, it's mighty, mighty early, so we expect you to be talking college football with us for a long, long time tonight. All right. Great to see all of you in the live chat as people are making their way in. Leave your comments, your questions, your debate topics, and of course, call me. The number will be on the bottom line there at 860-325-3687. We're going to get through the news items of the day, and we're going to talk to you. Of course, I will take as many calls as possible. I'm excited. Can't wait to talk college football with you. Yes. A few things that I've jotted down here. We started this conversation about a week ago on the best national champions of the 21st century, or you could go all time on this topic, of course. The best national champions, of course, Alabama's dominance in the national championship game and their perfect season comparison to LSU and what they accomplished in 2019 has led us to this topic that's been bantied about in regards to the always fun debate about the best national championship teams of all time. So you take your approach on this one, whether you want to go 21st century, whether you want to go all time, whether you want to pick a year and say since 1980, since 1990, since whenever, since when I was born, or you want to go with maybe this is an interesting take on that would be the best teams not to win the national championship, or in this modern era since 1998 with the BCS championship game, the best teams not to make it to the national championship game. How about the top games of 2020? I should probably post a video on that. The top games of 2020. What were your favorite games in such a strange season in which we saw only 5 or 6 games played by most of the teams in the Pac-12 and the Big Ten? Or if you're Arizona State, we've awarded them unofficially, of course. Arizona State is the pandemic team of the year. 3 games played for Herm Edwards and folks. They should be mighty well rested in 2021, those Sun Devils. Those Devils, 1 and 2 on the season. So your best games of 2020, which games did you enjoy the most in 2020? Best national championship teams of all time or the 21st century? And we're going to go through some news items as well. Look down at the crawl. If you shop Amazon, and most of you do, please use the link in the description section. Go to the description section of any of the videos. Shop Amazon using our link. We would appreciate it. Please smash that like button. That's another thing. Smash the like button. And we would appreciate that as well. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. You are the first caller of the night.
To the man that gives college football its voice, Mr. Mark Rogers. Hi, and how are you, sir?
David, had I had a guess, I was going to guess that it was you. I just had that feeling. How you doing tonight?
I'm honored. I'm honored. Well, it's always good to be talking college football with you, Mark Rogers. I will say that.
Thank you.
I wanted to give you a call. By the way, just a quick finished thought. You had mentioned why had Ohio State football tailed off in recruiting at the talent level going into that first year of John Cooper in 1988.
Absolutely. Want to hear this.
Well, first of all, I went back and looked at it. It had to do with, like most things, recruiting. His last few recruiting classes, if you take a look at, let's say, 85, 86, and 87, paled in comparison to his 84 class, which is probably his best class that built his 86 team. That was William White, Jeff Uhlenhake, and the 2 best players, 2 of my favorite players of all time were in that class, which is Chris Carter and Chris Spielman were in that class. And all those players were gone by 1988. And you could see that Greg Fry and some of those guys they had, Carlos Snow, although they were good players, weren't quite on the level of the guys they had, once Bruce had his better teams.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's what I would surmise. I think that there was definitely a tail off in his recruiting classes as far as some of the talent level when it peaked. Closer to that 84 class is basically kind of the long and short of what I saw. And Cooper kind of put the – go ahead.
Well, we were talking about that the other night, so I had no doubt that your findings are accurate because I'm aware of the rosters, but I was just questioning why. That was my question. Why? And that's why I said it would be great to be able to talk to somebody who was involved at the time to see if they had any theories as to why the tail off. It's Ohio State. You're going to major bowl games, 1986. You're going to a Cotton Bowl, finishing number 6 in the nation. You had a Rose Bowl team in 84, 85. You had the Spielmans and the Carters that you mentioned and other NFL players. You seem to have everything, not that they were on top of the world, but they were in a great place.
Well, the other thing, too, is remember at the time, Ohio was such a fertile base for recruiting in the 80s that, what did they say about the team up north, Mark, that they, at that period of time, they couldn't beat Northwestern without Ohio players?
Pretty much.
A lot of those better players, he came into Ohio and got a lot of guys. Of course, the John Colasars of the world, and as I've often said, they won 2 Heisman trophies in the 90s, and guess where both of those guys were from what state? So, Mr. Woodson and Mr. Desmond Howard. So, they still did a lot even in that period as far as getting Ohio guys. I did want to point out a couple of things. I wanted to get to the Tennessee situation, Mark. I wanted to ask you real quick. I never got a chance to ask you this. I asked Lou. Have you ever heard about handing out money in McDonald's bags? And what are your thoughts on that?
It would seem to be a little greasy. There's a certain smell to the McDonald's. I don't know if you've ever noticed this. So love or hate McDonald's, it's just a fact. You can smell them from miles away. Anytime you're turning a corner and on a major thoroughfare, that there's a McDonald's up ahead. That greasy French fry smell is on its way. So, it's any way somebody can get their hands on some significant cash. I don't think they mind the smell, but I've got to think that there's nothing you can do to get the smell off those McDonald's bags.
Well, I threw this out to Uncle Lou the other night, and he was, I don't know if you listen to Clay Travis, and I mentioned Clay Travis, and Uncle Lou didn't even want to hear of it. I did get a very low opinion of Mr. Travis. But Clay Travis has mentioned he knew it wasn't McDonald's bags because in the South, it would have been Chick-fil-A bags. It wouldn't have been McDonald's bags because of the popularity of Chick-fil-A in that neck of the woods.
I have personally not heard enough out of Clay Travis to be a fan, a supporter, or a detractor of him. I did find it very admirable of him during a lot of this mess during the summer months in which he was standing up against big tech and a lot of the people that would bully other folks around the internet sphere.
Yeah, I was. He had the term. He called them the Corona Bros. It was his kind of his catchphrase for some of the folks during this whole situation, which I was finding an interesting term. But yeah, he's a big SEC guy and even a big Tennessee fan, to be more specific. So, and he was talking about that. And I just found it hilarious. Are you of the opinion, Mark? And I know we talked about the SMU situation that the money being passed out is pretty prevalent. It's just a matter of those that get caught.
There's not much cynic in me, but I just think that's I can't imagine that there are certain football programs across this country that, you know what? I am going to stand in the place of non-judgment just because I hate to be judge and jury for where there's little evidence, and where there's been evidence, it's the kind of thing to say, okay, for the schools, whether we're talking men's basketball or talking football, that get caught, are they getting caught because they just happen to be so ridiculously blatant, stupid, ignorant, that it couldn't be avoided, couldn't be ignored, and so they were caught? with an understanding that everybody's doing it, but we're going to catch the especially ignorant, blatant, egregious that falls in our lap. So just to basically say you're not doing a very good job at this, or are those truly, I'm not going to say the only ones that are cheating, but that out of the X number that are cheating, we're catching 70 or 80% of them. And so just like speeding, that a good portion of them are being caught. I don't really have a great answer for you on that. I know that when I was in SEC country, that I think there was a very short period of time in which every school, maybe Vanderbilt was the exception, but I don't think they were, that every school in the SEC over a very short period of time, I'm talking 10 or 11, 12 years, had NCAA violations in football or men's basketball. Sure. And when I was there, I primarily covered 3 schools in 7 years, and I had to deal with NCAA violations from all 3 major violations, like bowl bans, scholarship reductions. Alabama, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State all got caught.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. There's a lot of cynical folks out there, I'm sure, as you know, Mark, and they a lot of folks I hear that just take the view of that all of them are doing it. It's just a matter of who gets caught. And I'm not quite that cynical. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but I overall, I just kind of want to get your view of it. Because, I mean, especially after you watch like an SMU situation, like we talked about, you wonder how much more prevalent it is out there.
Steve Dace has an interesting take on it, and I won't be able to articulate it as well as him just because it's his take, and I've only heard it secondhand. But he basically, and this is a very upstanding thing to say as a Michigan fan, he has said that of all his connections that he has out there and all the people that should be in the know to have any type of inkling or indication that schools within the Big Ten are cheating, that Ohio State is the one that is rarely, if ever, mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, I still feel, and I don't know how you came down on the Tressel situation, that when you look in the grand scheme of things, that memorabilia for tattoos is still pretty low on the rung of violations that are committed nowadays. And for what they had to deal with when it came to that, and to a great degree, that cost them a chance to play for the national championship in 2012.
Yes.
So, I think that's, I don't know. I still feel very bad about that whole situation, Mark. I never heard you necessarily outline your opinion on that one.
My opinion is basically that rules are rules, and there are many rules that I don't agree with. I had a conversation with my son about a week ago. My son's 24 years old, and he came to the conclusion, and as he gets older, things are certain things that I have taught him or other people have taught him, his mom has taught him, come to light and seem to make more sense. And he came to the conclusion, as he was telling me about a situation, that he said, "Dad, you taught me that there are," and I'm very much paraphrasing, I'm saying these in my words, very much that there is reason for structure, organization, rules, and authority. Most of it makes sense, but we shouldn't just blindly follow it. That if there are rules, regulations, authorities out there that break moral codes, ethical codes, our own faith or spiritual values and so forth, then they are to be questioned. We shouldn't just blindly follow everything. But we should have respect for the law, respect for the authorities and the rules and the regulations. Okay, in this case, Jim Tressel handled a situation poorly in which there were rules in place that didn't make any sense. And not just for Ohio State, just don't make sense. When you think about players accomplishing at that level and receiving memorabilia, trinkets, all the things that they received, and then either do one of two things. Either give them and place them in the possession of the athlete to say, this is yours. You earned this. You won this. And it's then theirs to do whatever they want. And I would hope that an athlete who received, gold pants for beating Michigan, or, a Rose Bowl MVP or a Sugar Bowl MVP would take value in that and want to keep that forever. But I'm not that individual. We all value things differently. So if they'd rather have a tattoo than have that, then it should be up to them. Or if you want to protect the status and the possession of those items, then you say possession A belongs to Terrell Pryor because he won the Rose Bowl MVP award, but it's going to be placed in a case at the university, at least for the duration of his eligibility, and then he can take it and do whatever he wants with it. But for the time being, it's going to be placed here. Not, we're going to give this to you, but you need to keep it. It's not really yours, and you can't do anything with it. I just think it's a silly rule, and for the team to be that penalized and punished for that. And again, Jim Tressel, I really have to think, Dave, that he acted out of complete loyalty for those athletes, because I can't figure out another motive or incentive that he had. He wasn't a first or second year coach at Ohio State who had accomplished nothing. So it wasn't like he was thinking, oh man, if these 5 or 6 players get suspended and then a couple of them never play for me again and move on to the NFL, boy, and I go 6-6 this year, my job's, he had so much equity. He could have had a bad season, and even without those players, where were they going to go? 8-4, 7-5, whatever. And he keeps going from there, and he's fine. I think he was that loyal to those 5 or 6 players, and I can see that as being the only incentive I can come up with for Jim Tressel. But so for that, I feel bad for him.
Yeah, I think it was by the letter of the law. I think he kind of got tripped up by what was in his contract, and I think he was trying to. And I think he didn't handle a protocol the right way, and I just think to get tripped up on that is just, I don't know. It always left a bad taste, and something like that. Hey, Mark, I did want to get to the Notre Dame situation, ask you about that. I heard about what happened there. Did they announce any sanctions for them, or did they get a bowl ban with that? I had not heard.
No, I just looked at that article a few hours ago, and we're actually going to have a Notre Dame 247 sports person on here, I believe, tomorrow to discuss it. But as best I remember, it is official visits and contact with the athletes have been reduced.
Okay. Yeah, the interesting thing is Uncle Lou was commenting on this the other day. One of the callers come in, and I know there's a lot of Notre Dame fans out there, but that they're kind of saying, "Well, look at you're doing these recruiting violations," and they had said that Notre Dame always gave us what was it, the kind of the holier than thou type theory, Mark, that because of our academic standards we cannot get certain players, and that's maybe why we can't compete. I mean, do you hear that from a lot of Notre Dame people? And
sure.
And how much stock do you put in that?
I think that Notre Dame has different standards than some other schools playing football, but there are certainly other. And I'm not here to say I'm some sort of expert on admission standards at any of the schools, but I generally think we've got 3 or 4 general tiers, and they're within that first or second tier. But we see the same standards at the Vanderbilts and Stanford and Northwesterns and Dukes, and I don't know how they compare exactly to Notre Dame, but I know that they're in that general vicinity.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know how much that hampers them compared to everyone else. They seem to be doing rather well.
Right.
I think to have competed as well as they have in football, that they have that the standards for the football player is not the same standard as the rest of the school. And I don't want to say that erroneously, but that's my guess, is that it's not the same standard. I just can't imagine that they would bring in the level of athlete for the football program that they do if the standards were as high as they report them to be, or that they are for the student body.
Well, the interesting point, Mark, and somebody, the caller had brought this up on Uncle Lou's show, Tony Rice, I believe, was they won the national championship with in 1988. Was he like a prop guy?
I believe he was prop 48.
Yeah, was a prop 48 guy, and would not have gotten him in if it, under like maybe normal circumstances. I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, I had heard that story.
Yeah, I'll have to verify that, but that sounds mighty familiar. Yes.
So I find it interesting. You're right. Kelly has certainly put the program as a top, I think, 6 or 7, definitely top 10 program easily in the country, and it has got them to at least a higher level. Now, obviously, it's very tough to crack the top 2 or 3 level, but I think he's at least gotten them to that point.
Yeah,
and he deserves a lot of credit for it.
Yeah, if their academic standards are that difficult, why are they able to attract NFL caliber offensive linemen and certain positions? But are their academic standards different at a wide receiver? I just, it doesn't seem to make sense. If they can attract and sign elite talent at most position groups, I don't think that's an excuse for not being able to play elite football. I just think that they're getting beaten by the programs that we're well aware of. But otherwise, they're doing fine. You wouldn't be able to recruit and sign to the level that they are if you're hampered that much by academic standards. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right. Yeah, it's just a matter of eventually, cracking the code, getting some of the skill players that we talked about that they're going to need to definitely compete on the higher level. That's for sure. Hey, Mark, you mentioned kind of throughout some college football nostalgia there. I did want to go down the road of best teams to not win a national championship.
Okay.
I obviously have a few Ohio State teams in mind. The two that always come to mind will be 1998 and 2015, of course. I actually think you could maybe even put 2019 in that category possibly as well. Although, again, as I say, I don't know if they'd have beaten that LSU team, even if they'd have beaten Clemson last year. Certainly 2015 and 1998 I would put in that category. I'd throw out a couple of other teams, Mark. The first team that I saw, the first actually national championship game, and a team that's always up there to me would be 1986 Miami. With Testaverde, Michael Irvin, Jerome Brown, just a great college football team that lost that tough game to Penn State. That would be one for me. I don't know what your thoughts are on that one.
Sure, they would be up there. No question about that. I just want to let you know, Dave, that as soon as somebody calls, I'm going to have to get to that call because I've ignored a number of them.
No, I don't know. That's all I want to do, Mark. I just wanted to throw out a few of those teams. Last thing, and I'll let you go, too. One suggestion. I don't know if you ever put together a list of greatest bowl games of all time. But that would be an interesting list.
Okay, we'll work on that. Boy, that's pretty exhaustive. All right, Dave. Appreciate it.
All right, Mark. Just an idea. Take care.
Press 1 to start the call. Will start.
Best bowl games of all time. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
This is Don C. Mark, thanks for taking my call.
Absolutely, thank you.
I'm out here in Moore, Oklahoma, a few miles south of Norman, Oklahoma, so big Oklahoma Sooners fan. I just want to get your opinion going into next year, what you think about the Sooners potentially being top 3.
Well, I think that Spencer Rattler matured quite a bit, made less mistakes. Like, I thought his first several games of the season in which he was gaining all that criticism, I thought he played rather well. He just made those 2, 3, or 4 crucial mistakes that cost them. Errant throws, bad decisions, But, you know, he was throwing the ball 40 times a game, and I thought he looked great. I thought from the time I saw him throw a football against, who was it? Southeast Missouri State was their first game, whoever it was, that he just looked like a natural thrower. And I don't know that I had seen him, obviously not throw the ball in competition before that. So I thought it was a combination of his development for the rest of the season, plus what they were able to do in the running game, where they only averaged about 3.5 yards per carry their first 3 or 4 games of the season, and they really got it going with Ramondre Stevenson and company, TJ Pledger, and really supported him on the ground. And then he's going into games having to only throw 20, 25 passes that were quality throws, quality passes, and the pressure was off him. So if they can continue that, I know that they lost Pledger. I believe he transferred to Utah.
Correct.
So that's a blow, obviously, in the running game. But they got Kennedy Brooks coming back. I was really impressed with him 2 years ago. Thought he was a top-notch player. Don't know why he opted out, but anyway, he's back. And Charleston Rambo, of course, wasn't necessarily a star or a guy that can't be replaced, but certainly a productive player that they won't have. And
Right.
It's amazing what the defense has done. It's amazing to me the work that Alex Grinch has done with that defense, that they just went from a team that was consistently blowing coverages, not too interested in tackling in some areas, to a team that's just swarming to the football, playing assignment football, not blowing coverages, consistently holding teams like Oklahoma State and Baylor down to 14 points in that range. So I think that, with everything that they've got coming back this year, and the offensive line is obviously, I can't come up with the name for your offensive line coach, but he's obviously doing a great job. Oh, there you go. Yep. I remember that name. And so there you go. That I think you're in great shape.
Can I piggyback off one thing you said earlier? You said that Rattler made those mistakes at the beginning of the season. And for us, as Sooners fans, we actually looked at the 2020 season as like that was going to be the culminating year to get back to the top of college football. And I think personally, Lincoln Riley messed up Rattler's development by bringing in Jalen Hurts the year before. Because I think they could have won the Big 12 the year before with Rattler just starting as a true freshman. I don't think he would have had those mistakes if he would have, played in 2019. They should have never got Jalen Hurts. That's just my opinion. Some people agree, some people don't. But I really believe at the beginning of the season that was, like you said, he made a few mistakes, but he was actually playing well. He just made a couple mistakes at the end of the game. And obviously Alex Grinch has the defense, playing the best it has been ever, probably since like 2008. So.
Absolutely. Anything else?
No, that'll be it. Thanks, Mark.
Appreciate the call. Have a good night. All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We are here, and we are also on Patreon. And we're planning a exclusive live stream over there late next week. Going to nail down the time on that. You can join us on Patreon for about 17 cents per day.
The call will start.
And we've got a lot of great things planned over there. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hello, sir. How you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing well. What's going on, Michael?
Not much. Hey, I thought you wondered if you could get any more calls. Hey, I do got a question. Was Greg Madison retiring from Ohio State today? Being that they had a co-defense coordinator, him and Gary Combs, I think is his name. Who had the final say about who? I mean, as far as the play calling for defense, and how huge is that going to be for Ohio State next year?
Well, it was my understanding that Kerry Combs did. I am not, I can't claim that for sure. I really don't understand the co-defensive coordinator concept. That would have to be explained to me. I never was a fan of not one person being in charge, because there has to be somebody that has final say. Therefore, they're not co-defensive coordinators. If you want to say that one is a game prep guy and the other guy is the play caller, then we could possibly do that. maybe that's what the distinction is there. But a few years ago at Ohio State, we had an issue with they had an issue with Greg Schiano and Alex Grinch in the same type deal where there was not one defensive coordinator. I know it's successful in some places. I just don't understand the concept. I don't understand how there can't be at least a distinction made as to who the guy that calls the plays has the final say. So he's truly the defensive coordinator.
And there's something I was going to ask you too the other day, but for some reason I'm getting up there in age and stuff. I can't remember. But maybe the next time. When was the next time you have a live show again?
The next time I
remember.
I'm sorry. The next time I have a live show.
Yeah, like this.
That is a great question. So, Michael, I've got some plans next week, and I am. It is my goal to come back from some time off. Come back and determine what my live stream schedule should be for the off season, because I want everybody to know when I'm going to be live. But I will say that the day that I come back, and it will be National Signing Day on that Wednesday, February 3rd, and we will be here live every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, and we want to start that with a big shebang on National Signing Day. Even though National Signing Day in February isn't what it used to be, we still want to do a huge recap show on all the recruiting news and the signings, and that's going to kind of kick off what you can count on being a Wednesday night show that's going to have a nice little slick production look to it. 8 o'clock every Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. But for the rest of the week, I need to nail that down because, I feel bad that you guys don't always know when I'm going to come on, so I kind of spring that on all of you. In addition to Ohio State at 2 o'clock Eastern on Wednesdays, sometimes we've got to move that, but it's generally Ohio State 2 o'clock Eastern Time on Wednesdays and Florida State at 6. But I would like to have a standard set schedule. And, of course, our show with Pigskin Pete every Monday at noon.
Yeah. Two other things before I let you go. One, hey, do you trust us enough while you're on vacation for the next couple weeks to do the show for you, or do you think you'll go to hell in a handbasket?
Well, maybe I shouldn't have mentioned that I'm going to take a little bit of time off. It's not going to be a whole lot of time. Because
Mark, you deserve it. You haven't probably had a real vacation in 5,000 years. 5,000
years. Well, I'm getting up there. I'll put it this way, Michael. I intend on doing so many records leading into a little bit of time off that I will that I'll be posting them. That I'll be posting them throughout the day, so it'll be like I'm not gone.
Okay. Another thing. All right, the 2005 Michigan team that lost to Texas in Rose Bowl, the 2016, because someone was posting earlier, which one of those teams, even though neither one of them played for the national championship those 2 years, was the better team, you think?
So you're talking about the 2004 Michigan team that played Texas in the 05 Rose Bowl. Okay. And then that Michigan team went 9-3. They lost to Ohio State by 2 scores, and then they lost a classic to Vince Young and company at the Rose Bowl. Comparing that team to what team?
The 2016.
06 Michigan team?
Yeah.
Well, the 2006 Michigan team was much more successful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the 06 Michigan team only lost 1 game, and that was to Ohio State by 3 points. To a number 1 team in the country. Ohio State on the road, and had a claim, at least an argument, to play in the national championship game before going to the Rose Bowl and losing to USC by 2 touchdowns. That USC team might have been the best team in the country. Actually, you talk about a playoff that might have been really good that year. It might have been USC, Florida, Ohio State, and maybe Michigan, maybe somebody else.
Yeah. No, I was just wondering, because if I'm not mistaken, and I won't be on here, I will just finish this time. If I'm not mistaken, didn't Michigan have a lead, like a 10-point lead midway through the fourth quarter, and then Vince Young just took over in that game? Absolutely.
Yes. They lost that 37-35. They had a 35, something like a 35-20 24 lead, 35-23, something in that range. Yes.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, great game.
All right, Mark. Well, I'll go ahead and start finishing time.
Yeah, absolutely a great game. Just that's all I'm saying.
Right.
Great game.
Yep. Have a great night.
Thank you, Michael.
Have a good weekend.
All right.
Thanks.
Have a good
Bye.
one. Yeah, in terms of running down some of these headlines for the day, Texas Tech's quarterback. Oh, we won't get to those.
The call will start at the beep.
You know, I throw these topics in here, and I'm all set to run down the news of the day and give my opinion, but you guys start calling right away, so that's what it turns out to be. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Dominic. How you doing tonight?
Hey, Dominic. What's up?
Nothing much. I just got some big news.
Some big news?
The sport.
Yeah?
Yeah, from hockey and baseball.
From hockey and baseball.
Yeah.
You know, we do a hockey show. I think that's a Sunday night at 3 in the morning.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, I'm sorry, Dominic. I'm just kidding. So you got big baseball and hockey news.
Yes.
Do you have any hockey or baseball shows to call to discuss that big news?
Well, I mean, not really as much, but I just want to get to Tennessee.
Oh, okay. Tennessee, yes. The University of Tennessee. Yes. Is that baseball news or hockey news?
The Tennessee Volunteers of college football.
Okay.
So yeah, I heard that. What was the news? I forgot. I heard about Tennessee, but I forgot what the news were about the Tennessee Volunteers.
All right, Dominic. Why don't you go look up whatever Tennessee item you wanted to talk about and call us the next time we do a live call-in show.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Dominic. Appreciate it. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Yes, Tennessee has hired an AD. Of course, that would be Danny White from USF, who's worked all over the place. Ole Miss, Northern Illinois, Fresno State, other places. His brother is the head basketball coach at the University of Florida, Mike White. But Danny White said a lot of good things. Of course, they always do when they get the job, about hiring a head football coach and competing for championships. Of course, Tennessee needs a strong individual with a engaging personality, but a strong individual with a lot of intestinal fortitude to go through a rough time and have the will and the stamina and the focus to drive through and come through on the other side. And they need to give him a nice long contract. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, I heard you taking a vacation.
Oh, let's be done with that. No, I don't take vacations. I'm going to be here every day. That was just a slip of the tongue. I didn't mean I'm taking a vacation. No vacations.
Well, if you do, you deserve it.
I appreciate that.
That's just the honest truth.
Once I do a little bit better here, we'll see if I deserve a vacation someday. We haven't reached our peak yet. We're still improving, trying to.
Okay. Let me ask you this, Mark. Tennessee 1998 or Ohio State 2002, who was more, I don't want to say luck, but who was more, I guess, fortunate to win the national championship that year?
That's a great question. Boy. So to educate the
Arkansas game.
Well, to be fair,
where Martin dropped the ball.
yeah, sure. You know the fan.
I think Ohio State used to have to make
touchdown to beat Purdue. I think that was one of the games they had a late touchdown in.
Yeah, so the fan in me, of course, wants to say Tennessee was more lucky, was the luckier team. But you know what we try to do here is we try to cut it straight. So I'm trying to do my best to cut it straight. But just to outline that for everybody out there. So in 1998, Tennessee went undefeated. They finished number 1 in the country. They played the BCS championship game, the very first one against Florida State. They won it by a touchdown, 23-16. They won the national championship. That was under T. Martin and Philip Fulmer as quarterback and coach the year after Peyton Manning left as the number 1 overall pick to the NFL. Okay, the Ohio State 2002 team went undefeated, won the national championship at the Fiesta Bowl over Miami, who had won 34 consecutive games. So the fortunate plays for Tennessee off the top of my head that year, they actually went to take on Syracuse and Donovan McNabb early in the season. And had it not been for a 4th down pass interference call against Syracuse I was watching the game, very questionable call, Tennessee would have lost the very first game of the season. So there's one. Number 2 is the one that you allude to. Arkansas was winning in Knoxville, was just running out the clock. Just needed a first down or 2. I don't remember exactly the time left, but there was like 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, something in that range, 90 seconds, and Arkansas's got a lead. A very good Arkansas team with Clint Sterner at quarterback that played Michigan in the Citrus Bowl that year. Houston Nutt as head coach. And this is where I distinguish luck from fortune or making the play. It's one thing to win a close game, but for your players to make plays versus to kind of be handed a gift. And in this case, you get the pass interference call against Syracuse at the Carrier Dome. And in this game, you had not a Tennessee player like a Leonard Little or an Al Wilson making a great play. You had Clint Sterner just drop the ball without being touched, just lay the ball on the field basically at about the 50-yard line. And then Tennessee scored to win the game. I'm trying to think of any other real close.
Martin dropped the ball.
Pardon me?
Steve Martin at Arkansas put the ball on the ground, if I'm not mistaken.
Clint Sterner did.
Like Steve Martin didn't do that too?
T. Martin also fumbled the ball.
Yeah, I thought he fumbled the ball also.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I just remember the Sterner play. But
yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, if you go back and look at the end of the game, there was a time that Steve Martin should have been down. His knee was down, and his hand was on the ball, and it should have been counted as being down, but it didn't count. I think that's what happened. Another thing I want to point out about that season, I think when they played Florida State, they played with their 3rd-string quarterback.
Yeah, I was going to get to that one. I was still on my way through the season. So, yeah, I was actually at the SEC championship game, covering the SEC championship game, in which a pretty poor Mississippi State team, and when I say poor, they were obviously a good team, but not good for SEC championship game standards. They went 8-5 that year. So they lost 5 games. They led Tennessee 14-10 with about 6 or 7 minutes left in the game. And then Peerless Price got loose for a touchdown on a bomb. And the Mississippi State quarterback, Wayne Madkin, threw a bad interception that Tennessee turned into a late touchdown to seal it over Mississippi State and go on to the BCS championship game. And as you're mentioning, Florida State lost both its 1st and 2nd string quarterbacks. And, oh, my goodness, can somebody look this up for me? I can't think of the name of the 3rd string quarterback.
I can't think of
Shoot.
Was it Rick?
No. It was not somebody that played much at all besides that game. It was not a starting quarterback later or before. You talk about a true 3rd string quarterback. That's what Florida State had going in that game. Cannot remember the guy's name. Somebody can Google that for us.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Anyway, so those were the fortunate moments for Tennessee that season. For Ohio State in 2002, yes, they won a series of close games. They almost lost to Cincinnati that year at Paul Brown Stadium, or whatever they called it at the time, Riverfront Stadium, Synergy Field, whatever it was, in Cincinnati. Actually, Chris Gamble had to intercept a pass in the end zone to preserve a win there. They had a series of close games, but the game that you're alluding to, they were down to Purdue 6-3 in the fourth quarter, and Jim Tressel went completely against his reputation on a 4th and 1 at midfield with about 2 minutes left, where you would have thought they would have handed the ball to the running back. Maurice Clarett was obviously the guy that year to try to pick up the first down. They went for it, and Michael Jenkins got behind the defense. Brent Musburger yelled out, "Holy Buckeye," and they scored a touchdown to win the game over Purdue. They had a 2 overtime game against Illinois, a pretty marginal Illinois team. They played a lot of close games. They only beat Michigan 14-9, but then they put it all together against Miami. And I will say that I'm pretty confident that if you look at NFL talent, that the Ohio State team was quite a bit superior to the Tennessee team.
Right. I probably agree with that, David, but like you said, Chris Gamble, I ain't going to sit up and say I knew who else was going to say, but they had a pretty good quarterback, but pretty good team, but they just was a top team that just ran the ball a lot.
There it is. We can thank Chris Kennedy. There it is. Marcus Outson. Yes, that was the Florida State. I had all these O and U's and Z's in my brain, and I couldn't remember exactly the name. Marcus Outson was the Florida State quarterback. So you're talking about it's one thing if he was the third string quarterback, kind of like before his time when he was a freshman, but he turned out to be a great quarterback or something like that. But we're talking about a guy that, other than starting the national championship game, was a complete non-factor his entire career. So Florida State was really behind the 8 ball in that game, and Tennessee beat them 23-16.
Right. Yeah, so I don't go with Tennessee too.
I think it's certainly debatable. I'm not saying it's some kind of slam dunk answer on my part, but I do think that Ohio State had more talent on that team. Everybody that played on that Ohio State defense had, I don't want to say significant NFL careers, but they went to the NFL and they played. They were on teams and played. Everybody on the defense.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Last question, man. Because we're talking about Tennessee. I know when I was coming up in the 90s, Tennessee played a lot of teams out of California. Was that where they were getting their talent for? I know people remember Peyton Manning came from Mississippi. But was that where they recruited most of their talent at the time from?
So you're talking about they played a home-and-home series with UCLA. I remember that. They played a home-and-home with Cal. So you're talking about those series.
Yeah, were they recruiting out there at that time? That's where they get most of their talent from?
I can't really answer that question. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember Fearless Price or any of them in the front. So that's why I asked. Fearless Price and was Lewis on that team? Was the running back, was it Lewis at that time?
Oh, Jamal Lewis. Wait a second. They had, I think Jamal Lewis was after that. Let's see, that was the 98 team. That's a great question because Jamal Lewis obviously played in the 2000 Super Bowl for the Baltimore Ravens. But for some reason, I think he should have been on that team, but I thought Travis Henry was the starting running back. They might have had both of those guys, but they did have Travis Henry and probably Jamal Lewis on that 98 team. They almost would have had to have had Jamal Lewis in 98. Yep. And they also had Marcus Nash, who turned out to be a bust in the NFL, but he was a first-round pick by the Broncos.
Right. Yeah. I remember that team, but like I said, I think we might need to go back and look at that game and when you finally get some rest, It should have been called down. So that's what I thought happened in that game also. But I know they were lucky to win the game. And that whole year, like, man, these dudes were lucky. But, you know, that's what it takes sometimes. I had Clemson and NC State.
Yep.
Clemson was lucky that whole year. Deshaun Watson was like, "Dad, what's going on here? We should be working some of these things."
Yeah, everybody brings up the Pitt game, but few people bring up the NC State game. And if the kicker would have made about a 30-yard field goal at the end of the game, then Clemson would have lost, and they would not have been in the playoff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but everybody thought it was a big game. Didn't see it coming, but people said, "Wow, they're playing terrible." And then they had the bye week after the Pitt loss, and then got it together versus I think Wake Forest next week. But yeah, that NC State game, the field catches the interception in the end zone, that helped out a lot. So yeah, that Clemson could have lost a bunch of games, 2 games that year, and it's crazy, but that's how life is sometimes.
I find it strange the play that the 4th down play in the Clemson-Louisville game, in which Louisville's driving, Lamar Jackson completes the pass. It's about 4th and 5, 4th and 6, and I forget who caught the ball. I think it was Jamari Staples. Who was it?
Was it Quick? Was a guy named Quick that caught it?
I remember him as well. Staples, Quick, one of those guys, catches the ball, and it just seemed to be not the best effort with the game on the line, and you're trying to pull off an upset on the road, and it's 4th and 5, and it just seemed like he kind of like tried to get past the defender and down the sideline, but he gets pushed out of bounds, and I don't know, he didn't put a move on him. He didn't do anything. He had open field to his right. He just, I don't know. I just thought it was a poor effort.
He just ran out of bounds at the end of the day, yeah. And that was, you know, like I said, sometimes you're just fortunate to win certain games. Louisville had just killed Florida State, basically.
Hey, DeAndre, I'm going to take this call.
All right, man.
I appreciate it. You know, you guys bring up so many topics, and DeAndre in particular, it makes me start this list. I always start a list here and think, oh, I need to cut a video on this, and somebody else brought up this, and I should go back and look at this, and then it's just tough to do. Man, I would like to sit here all offseason and watch old football games, or maybe put a big screen. I don't know what the YouTube restrictions would be on this. We put a screen back here, or I just bring my buy another screen back here, and we just, if we're talking about you know, we're talking Alabama, and then we just roll Alabama games from the previous season back here behind us and talk about them. Anyway, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hi, Mark. This is Anthony. How are you, sir?
Anthony, I'm doing well. What's going on?
Mark, I have a question. I'm not sure if I'm not sure if this is a good subject to bring up, but I need your honest opinion.
Sure.
About this. Do you think I understand Alabama has a talent and is constantly getting top recruiting classes, but do you think there's collusion between Alabama and the NCAA with them covering up possibly their recruiting transgressions, and that's why they constantly get like these super top, like these top recruiting classes, and that's why Alabama's able to constantly be dominating the past 20 years and stuff like that when it comes to football?
Well, I would say that over the past, so it's not been 20 years, it's been more like about 12 since Nick Saban's been there. He took over in 2007 and he started winning in 2008.
It feels longer than that. That's why I said 20. It feels longer than that.
Gotcha. I gotcha. So, you know, when you bring up something like that, it's difficult for me to speculate on transgressions that haven't been proven or there's no evidence of, to just kind of point the finger and say, well, it's
hypothetical.
It's hypothetically. Could Alabama be cheating? Of course they could be cheating. They were cheating when I was there in the mid '90s, they cheated and they lost bowl games and scholarships because of it. Sure, they could be cheating. I think we also though need to recognize.
That's what I'm saying. Do you think? Let's say this is really happening. Let's say the NCAA is covering up. Alabama is paying off recruits to come to Alabama and stuff like that. Even they're a good team, they're paying. They find out the NCAA finds out they're actually paying off players, which, in a sense, I think most of the top programs do that. But Alabama has been constantly doing it for the past maybe 12 years, like you said, winning these championships. Do you think the NCAA is purposely covering it up to give Alabama an edge, stuff like that?
Well, if we would run down all the teams that have been winning, and we would start with Alabama, of course, at the top, since Saban has taken over in 2007 and started winning in 2008, and then we go right down the list. Ohio State I could almost, without error, with conviction, say that Ohio State is the second best record during that time frame, and then Clemson with Dabo, and once they started winning in 2011, 2012. If you run down those teams that are playing the best football and have compiled the best records in the last 12 or 13 years, you have to go pretty far down that list before you find a team that has been in NCAA issues. Has had.
That's what I'm saying. It's unfair. It's unfair because look at what happened to Miami. We almost got the death penalty for cheating on recruiting. Yet Alabama is possibly getting away with stuff like this.
Possibly. So you can't state, Anthony, that it's unfair if you have no evidence and you don't know. It's possibly unfair. Yes, if it is happening, if there are programs out there that are cheating and they're not getting caught and others are, yes, it's unfair.
Yeah, because
you're taking a big leap, though.
Was it SMU or Houston that got the death penalty?
They both did. Well, SMU got the death penalty. Houston was in constant trouble from the mid to late 80s into the early to mid 90s. Houston was a constant issue, just like Florida was during the course of the 80s into the 90s. Florida was a mess for a long time under Charlie Pell and I can't think of the other coach's name.
Steve Spurrier?
No, it was before Spurrier. That's why I can't think of his name. Charlie Pell. And anyway, I'll come up with it in a second. But you can't take that leap and just say they must be cheating or. Yes, you're right. If Alabama or if anybody, you can pick anybody. If LSU's cheating and they're not getting caught for it and not paying the price, or if Oklahoma's cheating and not paying the penalty for it, then just because Alabama's winning championships doesn't make them a worse offender. If they are.
No, that's what I'm saying. If they are, and the reason why I'm bringing that up is because this is coming from like other college football fans too that are not Hurricanes fans that were saying that it's kind of unfair that a team like Miami, just because they're recruiting from, they were cleaning up Miami because they didn't want that bad boy. The NCAA was constantly fighting Miami and stuff like that with the Nevin Shapiro stuff and the stuff in the 90s and stuff like that happened that almost caused them to get blackballed or whatever it's called, the death penalty. That it's kind of unfair that they wanted to clean up that bad boy image because it was going against the blue blood shirt and tie type of the personality that the NCAA wanted. Do you think that's kind of unfair that they singled out a team like Miami that was acting like that, just because it was going against the norm of how the Notre Dames and the Oklahomas were acting back then?
If the Notre Dames and Oklahomas were not cheating, then it wasn't unfair. What I'm basically stating here, Anthony, let's back up here, is that, yes, your premise is correct, but it's an enormous if. You're taking an enormous leap. It's basically saying, is it fair for me to be sitting here hosting this show talking to all of you if I just committed murder last week? No, I should be in jail. I should be on death row. I should be somewhere locked away if that's what happened last week. But that didn't happen last week. Therefore, I'm here and I'm free. So you're taking a large leap. What I will say to your point is that when we can take certain situations that the NCAA judged, Houston, SMU, Miami, USC, others, Penn State's a completely other deal. They shouldn't be compared to those. And then over the course of about a 15-year span, everybody in the SEC at one point was on probation. If we can take any of those cases and match up the transgressions and then find where the NCAA treated a particular program more harshly than others, then yes, that's unfair.
Okay, that's what I mean. Do you think it's unfair they're treating a blue blood program like Alabama completely different because
we don't know that they are
of what they want
How do we know that they are?
Supposed to be like?
We don't know, Anthony, that they're treating Alabama different than anyone else. How do we know this?
No, I'm not. I'm just assuming. That's why I was asking this question, and I know you don't want to cause any problems. I don't want to cause you any problems bringing up a subject like this and cause you to get banned from YouTube or anything like that. I was just wondering about that question. It's kind of unfair that they're treating certain programs differently because they fit the portrayal of how they want the NCAA to be looked at, like clean cut, clean shaved, not acting like. You know how Miami was acting in the 80s where they were trash talking?
How they were acting, yes. Miami had a very distinctive style and brand. Absolutely. How is Miami acting different than anybody else now on the field?
No, they were forced to fit the criteria of that shirt and tie thing because the NCAA put them on probation for the whole Nevin Shapiro thing. So they were forced to act like that. That's what I'm saying. The Nevin Shapiro thing caused them to stop acting so brash like they used to. So that's why the previous coaches were like so neat and trim. Besides Randy Shannon, of course, like guys like Al Golden, Manny Diaz, and stuff like that, where they're not outright trash talking and stuff like that. Is what I'm saying. Like Jimmy Johnson was when he was in Miami in the late 80s, early 90s, where he was talking trash. He actually talked trash during press conferences and stuff like that. He actually said during an interview recently, it wasn't his fault that Notre Dame people got mad at him for blowing out. Who was it that retired from Notre Dame?
Lou Holtz. Jerry Faust. Yeah, 1985, Jerry Faust, 56-7. Yep.
Yeah, and they're like, that's that was unfair. You're blowing out a coach that was already going out. And when you look at the record books for Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State, they were doing the same crap, the same thing. Yeah, when Miami does it, it wasn't okay. They were disrespecting the legacy of a Notre Dame or a Michigan or something like that because it didn't. Their playing style didn't fit what the NCAA wanted. Is what I'm saying. So they were forced into the clean cut, clean shave thing because the NCAA doesn't want them to be out like trash talking like they used to in the 80s, and they want to have a clean persona to the public, is what I'm saying. Don't you think that's kind of unfair that they single out specifically Miami because of that? Because they want to force a team to fit the narrative of what they look at for a program like a clean cut blue blood program instead of like that trash talking, really brash persona.
There's no
Stuff like
question. There's no question that Miami, from about 1983, 84, and on through the 80s into the early 90s, had a reputation and a brand and a bad boy image based on a lot of trash talking, based on a lot of dancing and theatrics on the field, and a lot of sometimes dirty hits on players, and a lot of a certain style of play. Okay, that was between the whistle, but mostly outside the whistle. Okay, yes, and there were a lot of elements within college football and the establishment that hated Miami because of it. I don't think there's any question about that. But there's a difference between Miami playing a certain style of football, playing a certain brand of football, and showboating and having that type of image on the field, which you might call into question or not like it, but it's not violating anything. And you throw a flag once in a while because the guy dances in the end zone or takes off his headgear. There's a complete difference between evaluating that and having an issue with that versus them cheating. And they were cheating. And they did have unsavory elements within.
They were cheating with Nevin Shapiro, is what you're saying?
They did have unsavory.
The Nevin Shapiro thing was cheating.
Yes, and they had unsavory elements within the program that had to be dealt with, and that were not above board. Both they just the way players were recruited and treated on campus, and all of that was against rules, against valid rules. So those are two different things. Now they tend to go hand in hand, but
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Could it go hand in hand with the NCAA targeting Miami because they were being brash and also the cheating, but that they wanted to clean up the person that type of thing because they wanted to portray Miami as something that they technically aren't a blue blood like in Alabama or something where it's all about like the image of a shirt and tie thing. Miami's not like that. Do you think that's what I'm saying? It's a mixture of both, in a sense. Don't you agree, Mark?
The point I'm also making, though, is that you can't make allegations against another program when there's no evidence.
Okay.
We don't know that Alabama's been preferentially treated over the last 10 or 15 years. We don't know that.
Okay. No. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. I brought up these. I was bringing up allegations. I was just talking. I was talking to friends who are fans of other teams too, and we were talking about this type of stuff. Like, why is it? It feels like Alabama is getting an unfair advantage, but there's no proof that they're cheating. But
then how is that an unfair advantage? If there's no proof of them cheating, how is that an unfair advantage? An unfair advantage in what way?
No, because they're constantly getting the. There is no way you constantly are. I understand that they were winning championships, but there is no way constantly that you're getting the top classes with like 10 5-star recruits and stuff. There has to be something suspicious going on there. Like there must be evidence of paying players because, like, giving money and stuff like that.
Well, you can research. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. I'm saying that there's no evidence of it, or we would be talking about it. I'm saying if you want to go research that, but if you're going to make those allegations up against Alabama and say because their recruiting is so amazing, they must be cheating, then the recruiting at Georgia and Ohio State and Clemson
and Oklahoma.
Okay, Oklahoma. However far you want to go down the rung, where are you going to stop to say who's not cheating? Just because they're successful, they have to be cheating. So at what point you're taking the #1 class in the country, Alabama typically has that, and saying they're cheating, why wouldn't Ohio State be cheating too? And Clemson's cheating and Georgia's cheating. And at some point, I guess there's no more cheating because they're not the 20th best class in the country could have been a team that was cheating to get that good of a class.
And do you think there's a way for is it too hard for like the NCAA in general to control these type of things, like constantly looking to see if these teams aren't doing something off book or above board, where that is it hard for the NCAA in general to control that type of stuff, like where teams are hypothetically paying players to come to the university and stuff like that? Is it hard for the NCAA to catch teams in general for stuff like that?
There are two basic. There are a few basic reasons why a program gets caught. Either a player comes clean later in his career after he leaves the program, and we've seen this happen a number of times, and this happened to Alabama. If you want to talk about the NCAA turning it a deaf ear to a blue blood, Alabama was on probation. Alabama was on probation twice. Somebody could check me on this.
Wait, they were? I didn't know that. I thought they were. So they got on probation after Bear Bryant left, retired or whatever?
Okay, this was well after Bear Bryant. This was about 10 years after Bear Bryant. So the player, there was Gene Jelks. There was a player by the name of Antonio Langham who had a couple huge interceptions in his career at Alabama in the SEC championship game and the national championship game against Miami in the Sugar Bowl. There were recruiting violations in which Gene Jelks, in particular, had some issues with whatever was going on with his relationships with the Alabama football program after he left, and he blew the whistle on the Alabama football program, and he led the NCAA right to, and he laid waste to the Alabama football program, and they went on probation. It was just, I'm just highlighting the ways in which the NCAA finds out about things. Either there's a disgruntled player or employee at some point that has an axe to grind, and so they blow the whistle, or we were in a trend during the 90s and into the 2000s where SEC teams were so competitive against each other that they were blowing the whistle on each other. Somebody has to blow the whistle, or somebody has to do something so insanely stupid, and that, this is one of the main reasons why criminals are caught, is because there's a criminal element out there in which they usually show themselves at some point. They do something stupid, they trip up at some point to show themselves. So these are the two main ways in which the NCAA isn't out, scanning and spying and having all-nighters surveying buildings and on campus all over the place trying to figure out who's exchanging money. They don't have those kind of resources, and that's against the law as well. I'm going to take this call, Anthony. Appreciate the phone call. Thank you so much.
Press 1 to start the call or 2 to decline. The call will
Also want
start
to highlight Chris Kennedy's contribution there. Thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution. Appreciate that. Whoever's on the phone, please turn down the audio in the back. Good Lord. What's the... All right.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Please turn down the audio in the background. Hang on just a second. All right. We want to highlight Chris Kennedy's Super Chat contribution. Thank you so much, Chris. We appreciate it. His question here is about Arkansas in 2021. Sam Pittman's doing a great job. Arkansas played much better than its 3-7 record. I want to see this quarterback battle ensue, and we'll be talking about that. Chris, I hope that you caught our video with Ty Hudson the other day from 247 Sports, breaking down Arkansas's transfer portal situation, recruiting, all of that business. My initial thoughts is that Arkansas is in a great place, but they still are probably going to show up with one of the worst defenses in the SEC in 2021. All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hi, this is David.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Hey, Arkansas has a great team, but I just want to
reference the last caller, the inference Alabama has recruiting violations, that's really off the chart because I could make allegations against any team,
Sure.
and that's not fair.
Absolutely. And that's the point I was making, is that you can make all sorts of allegations against anyone and say, well, if they're cheating, isn't that unfair? Well, certainly it is. And I thought the best point that I made was just clearly, if I committed murder last week, should I be sitting here as a free man doing this internet show? Well, absolutely not. I should be locked up in prison. But that's taken a huge leap to say, Mark, you were a murderer and you should be in jail. Well, we can't say that any programs without evidence are cheating.
Right. We know that Notre Dame just had violations, and they admitted those, and Tennessee investigated those and admitted those. But Alabama, they had recruiting violations in the 90s. But to say Nick Saban, I mean, that man has integrity. I think there's no violations. Just because you win a championship, you get violations. So, you can't make that immediate association.
Absolutely. Now, if it broke tomorrow that Alabama had cheated, I would not be shocked or surprised, but that's not happened.
Right. But to have no absolute proof of anything, I mean, I didn't give Ante Smith $1 million to go out there and play football, but there's no proof of it. So you shouldn't be throwing those things out. I mean, hypothetically, maybe you can throw those things out, but just because you win a championship doesn't mean you're cheating. Like USC did, with Reggie Bush in those games. But that was the last class that really got caught. A championship was stripped. But Saban, I don't see that ever happening. I mean, he runs a tight ship. That's all I want to say.
By all indications, you're correct. Absolutely. Thanks for the call.
All. Thank you, sir. Great show.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
All right. Yeah, I gave Anthony way too much time, so that's on me. Yeah, we were running in circles about hyperboles and hypotheticals, I should say, about Alabama cheating or anybody cheating. Well, we don't know that they're cheating and have no evidence of such. Therefore, what are we talking about?
The call will start at the beep.
MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's McD Sports Sport. How are you doing?
I'm good, McD. What's going on?
I'm doing good. I want to talk about two things. I'm not going to talk about cheating and all that. The whole thing just gives me a migraine. I want to talk. I think you have dark horses. Do you mean dark horses of NFL draft in the NFL draft, or maybe dark horses as a team overall in 2021?
Yeah, I was thinking more of dark horses for 2021.
Okay.
But we'll talk about anything, so go ahead. Whatever you want.
Yeah. Well, I got my dark horse is Washington. They bring back 19 out of 22 starters. That's more than Oregon. They bring back all 11 starters on offense. They bring back 8 out of the 11 on defense. I think Washington could possibly win the Pac-12 over Oregon. I know a lot of people are out there saying, it's Oregon's conference to go ahead and win, but I don't really believe that for 1 second after what I saw this past season.
Yeah, too bad we didn't get to see the two play this year. They were supposed to, of course, and that would have decided the division championship. And Washington played a decent season at 3-1, but only got the 4 games in. But Jimmy Lake, we get to see him finally coach a full season and go at it this year. I'm going to look into Washington. Thanks for the blurb on Washington. I can't say that I've really looked into the personal gains and losses for the Huskies this year yet. I will.
Yeah, I mean, I saw what they were bringing back, like bring back all 11 offensive starters.
I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, I think they're the only team I saw that had that. So, and they bring back 8 defensively. The only thing that does concern me about them is, as you said, Junior Lake. First full season, he got, I don't even know how many games they played last year. Probably 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, they went 3-1
last year. So, kind of a good season. And then, obviously, well, not obviously, two of those defensive players that they're losing are defensive backs. So 2 out of the 3 are defensive backs. So it'll be a bit of a younger secondary. I'm always a bit leery about that. So that's something that does concern me a little bit. But I think that game, Oregon-Washington, is going to be a big game. The second thing I want to get into is I was going to call in yesterday, but the end of the stream is about Larry Scott, and what a great day it was for Pac-12 with that announcement. I mean, when he came in, as you mentioned, I caught most of the stream. Pac-12 has a pretty good football, not even with Utah and Colorado. He was able to get Utah and Colorado and give him credit for that. Utah, I mean, they've been in some top 10 polls over the years. Colorado kind of been a bit of a disappointment. But with the Pac-12 this past season, their top team, granted I know it was kind of an oddball season, was number 25 Oregon. That's the reason why the Pac-12 barely got a ranked team in the top 25 in the college football playoff committee's rankings is because no one has respect for the Pac-12, and I blame Larry Scott for that specifically. So yes, when that announcement was made, it was a great day for the Pac-12.
Yeah, he's made a lot of missteps. We posted a video about Larry Scott and his.
I watched that one too.
Yeah, and he just did not do a good job. He inherited a good football conference, and again, his job is to, of course, upgrade and look after and maintain and expand the conference on all sports levels. But of course, football makes the money, and it's got the most prestige, so it should be given the most attention. And he failed in building a Pac-12 network. You know, the launch of the network was great. It was great that he got it off the ground. It was great that they, went in that direction, just like the big boy conferences, the SEC and the Big Ten and so forth. But they have failed. Their approach was faulty. They didn't put together good programming, good production, did not take a aggressive approach to it, didn't take up ESPN on its offer to handle the network, which ESPN would have made it a success, I'm just about sure, because they've made a success of every other network that they've launched domestically. And Larry Scott is just not he made a number of mistakes down through the years, and that's his legacy.
Let me ask you this, Mark, about the legitimacy of the Pac-12. When Larry Scott got there, USC, I mean, they were probably top 15-ish, give or take. They were kind of hanging that scandal with Pete Carroll and all that when he got there. But you had Oregon, obviously, a very elite program under Chip Kelly. Washington, they made the college football playoffs once. Utah has had some good years. The Arizona schools have been a bit hit or miss. Stanford has built a very nice program. And every year you have probably in the top 8 in the preseason poll a Pac-12 team. Possibly 2 in the top 10 every preseason poll. Going into 2021, do you think there'll be any top 10 team? And not, let me reword the question. Do you think there will be a Pac-12 team in the preseason top 10, or in any preseason top
10? I would say 3, 4, 5. If I had to guess, no. I wouldn't be shocked if somebody snuck in at 9 or 10, Oregon or USC, but they would be the candidates. But I would guess no.
Basically proves my point about Larry Scott, just brought the conference down. And one other quick thing about the whole situation, whoever they hire needs to advocate when they expand this playoff, there needs to be automatic bids for the conference champion or whoever has the best record in that conference. So that's the one thing that they need to do. And they need to put some TV deals because I like watching Pac-12 football when it's 11, 12 o'clock after all the games, like in primetime spots. And I want to get, hopefully see some better games than maybe the past 2-3 years on the Pac-12. So
Pac-12 has there's a couple disadvantages there. From a time zone, I was trying to explain this to somebody the other night that called and was trying to say that the Pac-12's approach to scheduling games was faulty and that they should play more games in the afternoon so that they're primetime games. And I was trying to point out that regardless of what they do, they need to be smart and they need to be crafty about scheduling their games. But regardless of what they do, they're at a competitive disadvantage. Just they flat out are geographically, because if they can't schedule games at 9 o'clock in the morning to have them on at noon. Okay, that's number one. Pardon me?
You did see that this past season.
They can do it. Yes, they did it. But that's insane. It's stupidity, and you just can't do it on a regular basis. You just can't do it. You can't have kids getting up at 4:30 in the morning to play football. So you can't do that. So you can't take advantage of the noon window, which has become a bigger deal in recent years. And then also, I was trying to point out to this particular caller that if you talk to, we've got people calling in all the time saying, these games were played in prime time, blah, blah, blah. We want these games in prime time and making a spotlight out of the games that are in prime time. Well, if these games locally are in prime time in the Pac-12, then they are played at 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night in the Eastern time zone. So they're at a disadvantage. So for the people out in the Western time zone that have things to do or want to, go to the beach or do whatever they want to during the day and don't watch college football and then want to see a primetime football game at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, well, that game's going to be on at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night in the Eastern time zone, and most people won't watch it in the more populous area of the country. They're just at a disadvantage. Now, they can't do anything about it, so they have to work with it as best they can, but it's a significant disadvantage to the conference.
And I agree with that. And another thing with the Pac-12, looking at on the surface, is maybe it's just a bunch of competitive teams. Maybe it's a bunch of competitive 8-9 win teams. But I personally feel like they don't have a top 10 team in that conference right now, and that's an issue. And I kind of blame Larry Scott for poor marketing tactics for that. But I'm sure other people want to call the show, Mark. Thanks for taking my call. Go Terps.
Thanks, McD. Appreciate it. All right. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, talking up the game we all love each and every day. You know it. You know the drill. Best discussion, debate, and analysis. That's our aim. That's our goal. That's our mission. The Super Chat's available to you. Plain and simple. We need to build revenue streams, and that's not your responsibility. That is mine. But one is through the Super Chat contributions and Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. And other ways would include the Amazon link in the description section of the videos. Amazon link, grab it, put it somewhere where you'll remember it and use it to shop Amazon and help us build the channel. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Oh, yeah, this is the End Zone. I'm a fellow football YouTuber. I just had two questions. So you talked a little bit about your background, but I haven't heard the full story. So where did you work before you started YouTubing?
Well, I don't want to bore a lot of people, so I'll make this brief. So I graduated from Kent State University, and my first broadcasting job was about 6 months later at a radio TV station in Ashland, Ohio, WNCO. I was a news anchor there, and I did play-by-play for high school football and basketball and Ashland University football on the weekends. I was there for 3 years. Then I went to WCBI. It's a CBS station in Mississippi, and was the sports director there for 6 to 7 years, and covered the SEC. That was, the bulk of the responsibility there, but most notably Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Alabama. Then I went to ESPN, and I was a production operations manager there for 19 years. That brings me to right now.
Okay, that's awesome. And then second question, this is college football related.
Yep.
Are you buying Georgia and Texas next year, or Georgia or Texas, just one or the other, or both?
Well, I would buy, if we're talking about buying, meaning contending seriously for conference championships, I buy Georgia all the way. I would have loved to have seen JT Daniels quarterback against Alabama and Florida this year. And I think that they got more talent back than most people expected, more to leave for the NFL draft. So, we posted a video a few weeks ago breaking down their NFL draft departures and the guys that are coming back, and they did much better than they anticipated. So I think Georgia's in a prime position that they have a better roster than Florida. So if they have solved the quarterback situation, they should be decidedly better than Florida this year and playing in the conference championship game. Texas, on the other hand, I think Steve Sarkisian has a climate, an environment, a culture to clean up there. It's not horrible. It's not a Florida State type culture under Willie Taggart and now Mike Norvell, or some other bad situations we've seen across the country, but I don't think it's the best. I don't think it's the most competitive locker room around. So Steve Sarkisian has some work to do there. They're going to be good. He's got top 10 to 15 talent in the country, but I don't think they'll necessarily make a strong competitive run for the Big 12. So Georgia's in much better shape, in my opinion, than Texas.
Yeah, and I said this in the beginning of the year, back when Jamie Newman was announcing his transfer. I think I called in and we talked about it. But how down people were kind of on Daniels compared to Newman before Newman said that he was just going to forego the season for the NFL draft. But Daniels is really talented, just like from a standpoint of like intangibles and like ball placement, things like that, stuff that you have to actually like really watch the tape and kind of overlook the stats. But I was really excited with him this year. And as for Texas, did you watch the bowl game?
Oh yeah.
Against Colorado.
Yep.
Bijan Robinson, he's nasty. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, he
18
is.
yards per carry was at it. He went off. But I'm excited to see what Sark can do with those weapons there.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting to see him with. I'm going to think that Casey Thompson's going to be the quarterback, or is there going to be a battle for the top spot there? So. I was impressed with.
Four touchdowns. He had 4 touchdowns and came in at the third quarter for after the injuries to Ellinger. I think he went that offense. It was fun. But yeah, those were my questions on what you think about those teams. It's interesting for Texas because if you look back a couple of years ago, you would never think that Iowa State would be that second premier team in the Big 12. Matt Campbell came in and totally turned the program around. But I don't think Texas fans ever thought that they would have to be competing with Iowa State for that number 2 spot. So I don't know. The Big 12 is really interesting to me. I like how competitive it has been.
Yeah, I think it's a fun conference, and what I most like about the Big 12 is that they play the purest championship.
Oh yeah, definitely. Their system I don't understand why college football has divisions. I live in SEC country, and I always get in arguments with the SEC fans who want the division purely because of the historical context that they have. And I just don't get it. I feel like the 2 best teams should go. It makes the sport much better.
Yeah, see, my slant on it isn't so much from that angle, although I definitely understand what you're saying, and I have no argument against that. I'm saying more from the standpoint of the number of teams in these conferences. We've got too many teams in the conferences. They can't play a legitimate championship. In the Big 12, they can because everybody plays everyone. They play 9 conference games in a 10-game conference. So everybody plays everyone. So it's a true championship where I will need to go through, as soon as all the schedules are released, go through every conference and determine who is benefiting from a light schedule versus who is getting screwed by a difficult schedule, because that's the case. They don't build equitable schedules in the other conferences.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having my call. Let someone else call in. You have a great rest of your night.
Appreciate it. Have a good night. All right. Anything else tonight, folks? And with that, David Greenshield tells us that Ohio State may have the best wide receiver core in the nation in 2021. Olave, Jackson Smith, Garrett Wilson, of course. There you go. All right, folks. It was a good time. On the line for almost 2 hours. Great to see everybody here. Hope to get you a set schedule soon so we can raise the awareness and certainly raise the numbers of people online, which we really did well during bowl week. My goodness, we had a ton of people on here, usually about 550 to 600 and like 900 after the playoff games. But so it's been a little bit sparse, but here's the core 40 or 50, but we need to do much better than that. So when I announce a schedule, get that out on a regular basis, we hope to hit that goal. All right, folks, appreciate it. We will see you next time. I'll let you know soon when that will be. Of course, if you subscribe, you hit the bell for the notifications. That way you know when we're going live. And we're going to have videos out for the entire weekend. I need to work on my way too early top 25 and a number of other items as well. And if you've got any requests, leave those at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. So if you've got requests, any type of historic videos that you'd like for me to break down or anything in particular, we will get, I'd like to get past spring practice before we, so here in the next several weeks, we'll start to work on spring practice and preview spring positional units for all the teams and the major areas of focus for each team going to spring practice. And then out of spring practice, we'll focus on the top 10 at each position in college football, the top 5 at every position in each conference. ACC, top 5 quarterbacks, top 5 running backs, top 5 wide receivers on down the line. Coaches rankings, most of you will find that to be intriguing, and I'm sure I will gain much criticism when I rank the coaches in each conference. So that'll be a fun debate. And somebody threw me best bowl games of all time. I think that was David. Best bowl games of all time. Maybe we'll get on that, but I got a feeling nobody's going to watch it. So it'll probably be a big waste of my time. What else? Playoff format. I got to get that out. My playoff format. I released a video this week in which I compared my playoff predictions and championship game predictions over the last 5 years versus Klatt, Herbstreit, Leinart, Howard, Corso, those guys. You'll have to check out the video to see who had the more accurate predictions out of Joel Klatt, Kirk Herbstreit, Desmond Howard, Matt Leinart, Lee Corso, and the voice of college football. Guess. All right. Yeah, playoffs, we need to get those out. I got a 16-team lineup here, so we'll produce those videos. I also want to compare all the conferences and how well they've played in non-conference games, both bowl games and regular season games over the last, 10 years. Who do you believe has played the best? We'll have to determine whether that's worth an investment in my time and research there as well. Here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Have a great night. We'll see you soon.